Hi everyone, welcome back to our farm apiary with the honeypore Langstroth hives. Today is a follow-on from the previous inspection. We're going to have another look at the hive that's furthest away from us. It's been, unfortunately, 8 days since we were last here. The weather has been almost catastrophic. Honey production is down, swarming is up. It's just been one of those very odd occasions, and I don't think I've experienced a spring quite like this really, in terms of all of the frosts we had in April and then the intermittent very cold weather through May, and we're almost into June. So it's a lovely spring-like day today. Although we're almost into summer, today feels like the first glimmer of hope really. The sun's just getting through the clouds, the wind has dropped, that cold wind has changed direction. We're now getting some milder wind in, and hopefully the bees will have a couple more weeks on the oilseed rape to maybe bring in some nectar and set some honey. It's just going to be a mad race now. The crop is starting to go over, the fields are turning from bright yellow to that green mix of yellow and green, and then eventually they'll become completely green as the flowers fade and the seed pods form. And so we're then looking at what other crops we can have for our bees, not just for the honey, but for them to survive. We've actually been finding a lot of colonies that have been almost on the verge of starvation, which in May is unheard of. Given the oilseed rape crop that we normally have as a guaranteed honey crop, some of our colonies have just not been able to get out at all to even forage enough for themselves, let alone to store a surplus. However, for the most part, the bees have survived without too big an issue. Honey crop is completely down, but the bees are okay. Looking around, we've now got things like cow parsley, hawthorn. Yesterday we were at an apiary and the bees were all over the hawthorn foraging on it, which is fantastic. And hopefully we're not going to see a June gap, which here in the UK traditionally there is a small break between spring flowering plants and the summer flowering plants. Some years we don't get it at all, other years it's a noticeable break, and that can be important if you're taking honey off your bees. If you're lucky enough to have had a crop of honey that you can take from the bees this spring, do make sure that the brood nest area has got enough stores to see them through to the next foraging period, and don't rob them of absolutely everything and find that your bees are starving. If you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. Do check out my Patreon page, which is where we post the vast majority of all of our content, videos. The podcast comes out on our Patreon page every Friday and then is published publicly around 4 weeks later. So if you want the very latest news, tips, techniques, then do take a look at our Patreon page, and I'll put a link down in the description below. But for now, let's grab the smoker, head over to the hive and see whether they've swarmed or not. A little bit of smoke at the entrance. Just pop the hive tool, it's not a hive tool, it's a smoker. Pop the smoker down and see how these bees are progressing. Well, lots of bees in the top there. Let's pop the roof down here. With a bit of luck, we've got a honey crop. Now, I know that this is going to be quite heavy. Let's just pop some smoke underneath the cover board. Nice to just have a quick look down, see what's going on. Looks like there's plenty of stores in this one. And then we can just pop this down on the floor in front of the hive. plenty of weight in there. Not quite so much happening in this second box. Okay, so we've got our queen excluder in place on this one. We have trialled a couple of colonies without queen excluders, but unfortunately I think with this season having been so erratic to start with anyway, a lot of the colonies have tried to swarm, have in fact swarmed, and so it's made it quite difficult to assess exactly how things have been going on. So a standard inspection, just looking through to see if we have eggs. That's kind of the main priority here. I'd just like to ensure that we have sufficient bees in here, that they haven't swarmed. But as I say, it's been a while since we managed to get over, and to be honest, I would have expected to have seen some eggs almost immediately because they are quite prolific bees. No eggs on that one. So we've got some capped brood, no larvae as yet. So we'll just move our way through and see what we've got really. And obviously another indicator is queen cells, so we'll be looking to see if we've got any queen cells. And already I'm seeing queen cells here, so my suspicion is that they may have swarmed, so we'll go through and just check to see what we're dealing with. See if we've got any eggs, see if they're, or maybe we might spot the queen. I can't recall if the queen was clipped in this colony. You can see the nectar dripping out. So that's fresh nectar that's been foraged and brought in. The bees are nice and calm though. There's not much going on with the bees. They seem fairly chilled out. Yeah, so there's no obvious sign of young larvae or eggs, which would tend to indicate that they've swarmed. And one of the things with clipped queens particularly, and it's one of the reasons we clip them, when they try to swarm, the queen that's clipped can't actually fly with the swarm, and so either gets lost in the long grass that surrounds these hives, or they sometimes make it back into the hive, but very often they'll make it back to the hive and end up clustering under the floor. And so it's always worth, as you're inspecting, just having a look down to see what's going on through the open mesh floor, because sometimes you'll see a cluster of bees beneath that open mesh floor, but in this instance there are no bees down there. So these bees pretty much guaranteed have swarmed. Yeah, looks like they have swarmed, and I can't, we see so many bees, I can't actually remember, and I haven't checked the diary, which I should have done, but I can't actually remember whether last week I decided that they'd maybe swarmed or not. But there's plenty of bees in here, so maybe that's what happened last week, and now we're looking at probably queens that are likely to start emerging soon. So the plan really is to just go through. I'm just going to go all the way through, check each of the frames, and then we'll come back. I mean, I'm not seeing any swarm cells all over the place. That these girls have not produced masses of queen cells. Just having a look to see, we maybe got a couple of emergency queen cells here, but I did see some queen cells further back, so we'll just go all the way through. What I'm looking for at this point really is to see if we've got a really nice queen cell, and so far I haven't seen anything that sticks out obviously. So we're then going to make an assessment as to which queen cell we want to keep, and so far I'm favouring what I saw right at the beginning, and yeah, there's no sign of any queen cells that are obvious on these frames. So we've only got a couple of frames that are showing queen cells. Again, no rush. You can take your time when you're beekeeping, particularly if you only have a few hives. This is a pleasurable pastime, a hobby for the vast majority of people. It's only when you get into the ranks of commercial bee farming that the pleasure of it sometimes has to be set aside for racing round in order to see as many colonies as you possibly can. However, when you're at this stage, it's often nice just to have a little look round and see what you've got. Take your time and just enjoy the whole experience. So we've been through, still plenty of bees here. So what I think we've got is a colony that's tried to swarm. Queen is clipped. We've not lost all of the bees because we've still got 2 boxes of bees in front of the hive here. So we can now come back through, and actually we could make a split. So we could use the frame that has got those queen cells towards this end of the inspection, and we could use the frame at the front here and simply do a split. And the way we would do that, and the nice thing about these honey pour hives, is that we can put one roof on the bottom box and then stick another brood box on top of that and turn it into a floor. They have a little ridge that runs around them that allows them to be used as a temporary floor, and then obviously we need to pop the roof on top of that as well. So perhaps that's what we'll do. Let's just come back through. To be honest, I'm tempted to just leave them with 1 queen cell. So again, just to explain my thought process with that, we'd like these bees to forage into the summer, give us a honey crop. We've got 1 box that's probably combination of maybe a couple of standard supers, and that's kind of the weight of the honey that's in the first box that I took off, so that's quite nice to have. If we split them, then that's obviously going to reduce the number of bees that we have in both boxes. It means we increase, or we have an opportunity to produce 2 queens. Hopefully they both mate and are successful in mating, and then go on to head up a colony themselves. But if one fails, we could then unite the 2 back down together, so that's an option for us. So these honey pour hives give us a lot of different options, so it's worth just thinking it through in your own time as to how you're going to manage that. If we just leave 1 queen cell, then they can't swarm on just 1 queen cell. So they go off, she goes off, mates, comes back, but she retains all of the foraging bees, and all of the brood that's in there is going to emerge, and they're going to head up the early summer foraging bees, and so we still stand a chance of getting a crop of honey off them from the summer as well. So let's do that. Let's come all the way back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shake the bees off each frame until I get to about frame number 5 here. So we've got 1 on the floor, and then we've got bees here, and I just need to remind myself which one it is, because I don't want to shake all of the bees off a frame that has queen cells. So this is the one that had the queen cells on it. This end frame doesn't have any queen cells, so I'm just going to peel these off, remove these queen cells so that they can't produce a queen and then swarm on a virgin queen, because that's the other potential situation that we face. And they're going to be, given the time frame, we're probably looking at about day 15. So these queens are likely to be on the verge of swarming. And you can have a situation where a colony will produce what's called cast swarms. And so one colony swarms with a virgin queen. It leaves other queen cells in that colony. The next virgin queen to emerge also swarms, and that reduces that colony firstly by half, then by half again, so you're now down to around a quarter of the size of that colony, and that can just continue and go on and on until such time as you only have barely an egg cup full of bees left. So we'll continue to go through shaking the bees off, and looking for these queen cells. And some of the queen cells, because they're emergency queen cells, can look very small and can appear to be almost drone cells in their size, and you have to make sure that you look out for those. And if we spot some, then I will show you. So now we're getting to the point where I can't quite remember which frame has got the queen cells on, so I don't want to shake them all off and then find that I've shaken the bees off a frame that has got the queen cells on. So I'm just using my finger to move the bees around, when in fact we've got an emerged queen cell at the bottom of this frame. So now we're in a position where this colony has got an emerged queen, and it will have only just happened. And we need to be careful that we don't leave any queen cells. So because there's so many bees in here, she's only just emerged. The virgin queens take maybe a few days to get themselves get their exoskeleton firmed up, straighten their wings out, get ready for flight, flex their muscles, and build up enough strength to be able to swarm. So it might be 24, 48 hours. So what we need to do is to just go through now, accept that we have a virgin queen in here somewhere, and remove all of the queen cells. So I'm not going to save any queen cells. So this is the queen cell at the bottom, and there's a little trapdoor that's opened at the bottom, and that's where the queen has emerged. So we know that a queen has been released, has chewed away through the bottom of the cell and has come out, emerged into this colony. So we'll just move on and shake the rest of the bees off. I'm not going to worry about looking for that queen. She won't be particularly large yet. So we can just take each frame and shake them off in turn. So here we have more queen cells. So there's one just here, an emergency queen cell, and one just up the top here again, an emergency queen cell. And we'll just peel those away, check both sides to make sure that we're not missing any, and this is where you do need to be careful, you do need to take your time. And so we have more queen cells here. What I'm actually doing before I take them away is just making sure that they haven't emerged as well. So it's important that we just check them to make sure that we're not dealing with a colony that's got more than one emerged queen in it. And then we have two on this side again in an emergency queen cell position. I'll just use the corner of my hive tool to pick them up, and I know that it's destroying emerging queens or potentially emerging queens, but it is just part of dealing with a potentially swarming colony. So just using a little bit of smoke to move the bees away from the edge of this frame so that I can pick it up. Again, a shake into the brood box, and by shaking the bees in the brood box, they'll then go along the bottom of the box and up the other frames. If you shake it higher, then you end up with all the bees on the top bars and coming up into the air. So again, looking at these queen cells, no emerged queen cells. You can see there's a drone emerging over here, but we'll have to ignore him for now and just remove these queen cells. So these are all fairly immature queen cells, so they still have a few days to go before they emerge, or would have emerged. So I think we're okay. We've managed to get in just in time. And of course, if you wanted to produce more queen cells for either replacement queens or for expansion, then you could use these queen cells. You could cut them out and put them into hopelessly queenless nukes or other queenless colonies. So just final check. But we're not going to do that. We're going to leave them to settle down. We've got this final frame, which we will have a quick look at, just to make sure there's no queen cells. And you will hear people tell you that bees don't put queen cells on the outside frames. Well, believe me, they do. So we'll pop this one back in, and that's our inspection completed. I'll just push the frames tight together so that we've got the right spacing. A little bit of smoke. Just knock the bees off here. So we've still got lots of bees, so I don't think we've lost a swarm from them. I think that what we've got here is a colony that's tried to swarm, but that haven't been able to because the queen was clipped. So lucky me, really. Okay, so we can get the first box back on. And this box is just frames of foundation. They haven't actually worked on them, and you'll notice this has got some holes in it. It's where the bees have chewed the wax because they've wanted to use it elsewhere. So we'll just leave them. Looks like I need to get some additional an additional frame in there. So we'll pop the cover board there. I'll get the final box on. And this is a heavy one, so we'll just have a quick look and show you what we've got in here. So the bees are filling up with honey. This is probably not quite ready to be extracted. It's still dripping out of the frame, so that's an indication that it's not quite ready. And the other thing, of course, to check is that sometimes the queen can get up into the top box and will lay eggs, and you'll find that she's up here and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things like laying eggs in all the frames, and then you can't extract the honey. So looking okay, actually. One last look. I think given another week maybe, this will be ready to come off and be extracted. So that's all good news. Right, we'll get the cover back on. Don't forget to check out my Patreon page, where you'll find lots more information, lots more content, and also the podcast each Friday, which is called Beekeeping Short and Sweet, which is available on all good podcast apps. That's it for today, and we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.